Hi everyone, welcome. Hopefully you can see my screen. Um, Let me bring up my participants. Oh, Joel, I see that you are in the attendees list. Let me promote you. There we go. Okay. Uh, Hi everyone. Welcome to the April meeting of the ANC 1B Zoning Preservation and Development Committee. My name is Christian Brandt. I am the chair. And we are going to get started with our roll call. And I will just update this as more of our members hop on. So I'll start with me. I'm here. Commissioner Kensek. Nope. Jason Bello.
Here.
You. Karen Brueggemann is not here. She let me know she's not coming. Frank Chauvin, you are here, but you have to say yes if you can.
Yes, here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Aaron Pervin, I see you.
Hi, here.
Perfect, thank you. Karen Gall,
Present.
thanks. Brad Solian,
Yep.
some. Joel Heisey. I think you are here, so I'm gonna mark you here, Joel, but unmute if you get the chance. Um, Jan, you told me he was not coming today. He's out of town.
I'm here. Yeah,
Okay, great. Thank you. Patrick Nelson,
Present.
Jarrett Stroman, Daniel Kramer, Alex Smith told me he was not going to join us today. Bruce Flippins, Devin Reed,
Howdy.
and Gabriel Gassman. Okay, fabulous. Um, we are, I did get a request from the council member's office, from the legislative director, David Meny, who's joining us. Um, to go first, but I do not see him in the audience. And so, in the interest of keeping this meeting moving, I'm going to um, to our thing that I had listed first on the
Before you start that, can I just make a quick comment
yes,
on committee members?
yes,
I don't know whether you're keeping track or not, but according to the bylaws, if certain people do not attend meetings,
yes. I am
they
keeping
can be
track.
taken off. And there's three people that you should be considering removing from your list.
They're on my list, Patrick. And I'm checking it twice, as they say. Uh, this is actually reminding me that I did want to really quickly, for folks who might have joined for this purpose, want to mention that we are pushing the zoning case ZC 2602 to a subsequent meeting per the request of both the applicant and the LaDroit Park Civic Association. So we won't be discussing that today, although all of you do have the application, and if you have a chance, I encourage you to read through that. It's pretty detailed, so it's a lot to get through. But I we're gonna hopefully discuss it next month, but we'll see what the applicant uh, and LaDroit Park Civic Association tell me. Part of the reason for that is that the two of them are working through the a development agreement, or they're hoping LaDroit Park Civic Association is hoping to create a development agreement with the applicant, sort of along the same lines that they did with Howard University. So, in a future meeting, you can expect us to be considering both the applicant, uh, applicant's proposal and also the Civic Association's development agreement. And I'm sure we'll have information presented by both parties. But so for the time being, we're going to strike that from our agenda today and we'll push it to a subsequent meeting, which means that we are doing two things. We are discussing the two different housing bills, the Fair Share Housing Act and the Housing Production Omnibus Amendment, and then also we are reviewing HPA 26215. Initially, um, and I see Gabe, you joined, so that's excellent. I will mark you as present. Oh, you're already marked as present. Never mind.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
Oh, you're fine. I was prescient, I guess. So I was going to get us started with the bills because the council member's office asked if they could go first, but I do not see David in the audience. So we will first go to the 402 U Street Northwest application, and that means that I'm going to ask Aditya Fontana Reina to become a panelist. I just sent you, excuse me, I just sent you a promotion request. Great. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then if you would be willing to share your screen with an overview of well, introduce yourself first and then share your screen with the relevant application materials so that we can review, that would be great.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Stephanie Fontana Reina. My husband's Aditya Fontana Reina. He's in the background with our 6-week-old baby, but I'll be
Great.
asking or sharing the proposal. So let me share it. Oh, sharing is okay.
I just made you co-host. I always forget that only
Perfect.
yeah, so you should be able to share.
Okay. Yes, so our proposal, which is scheduled to go in front of the Historic Preservation Board at the end of next month, is to add a glass vestibule in the back third of our covered front porch. So these are the pictures of the front porch now to provide the existing context. And then as seen from above, the new glass panels would be added where the lines are marked here. So it's basically the width of the front door in terms of the depth, and then across the full face of the porch, leaving the front more than half as it is now unenclosed. And we were proposing to use glass panels. So this is what it would look like. The picture on the left is when you look at it straight on. It would be glass panels floor to ceiling, and for the full width, and the door would be glass as well. And then this second photo is looking at it from the side, so you can get a sense more of how much of the porch we are proposing to enclose. And so, yeah, the idea is to have it glass, add the glass vestibule to help with energy efficiency, preventing air and leaves coming in. It's our dining room on the other side. And then also to have a bit more of a secure place for packages. We Package theft is an ongoing problem in our neighborhood. And so we're looking at this proposed design with the glass panels and the glass door to keep as much visibility on the original architecture as possible. And we would be retaining all of the existing architectural details. And so, we would leave the columns and the rails. There's a old light on the front porch, and the front door would still be fully visible. And ultimately, the glass panels could just come back down in the future without changing anything about the existing covered porch. So I'm happy to give a little bit more detail. I'm not sure how you normally do this, Christian, so feel free to tell me if I should pause
Sure.
and take questions or.
I think this is relatively sufficient, but I will just ask if you could share two additional items, and then we can get to committee member questions. One is if you could share, sort of from your perspective, a summary of any conversations you've had with HPO, and also just to clarify for folks, this is on 402 U Street Northwest, which is in the LaDroit Park Historic District. So if you could clarify what feedback or conversations you've had with Brendan at the HPO, and then also what stemming from those conversations, what changes, if any, you've made to the concept.
Sure. So yes, we talked to Brendan, and he said, he can approve proposals if they're clearly within the guidelines. And since there are restrictions on enclosing porches, this is something that would need to go to the board for if it were to be approved ultimately. And so in terms of any alterations to the proposal, he had asked if a storm door would do the trick, which doesn't require historic preservation HPO or
Hmm.
HPB approval, um, which would help if the door's closed, with airflow, but doesn't prevent, the open airflow when we open the front door, or address the package security problem, which is a big piece of it for us. We have a package box and we have a sign saying, please leave our packages in the box, but it doesn't work. And yeah,
Got
so
it.
that was the discussion with Brendan. So we're very open to suggestions on minimizing any change or sticking, materials or design structure, or the footprint of it to make it more easier to be approved. But
Sure. Awesome. Thank you. And can you remind me your name again?
Stephanie.
Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so I am going to, so basically what we will do now is that we'll go to committee member questions, and then we'll have community member questions, and then we will do committee member comments, and then we'll do committee member comments, and then we'll do community member comments, and then theoretically at that point there's an endorsement vote. Um, so I will first start with committee member comments, and I see Jason, you have your hand up, so please go ahead.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions and then a few reflections and comments. Like it seems to me that like a storm door, which you can get approval at the staff level to replace in kind, would solve your leakiness problem. And if there was an issue with wind coming in, why couldn't you just enclose then part of the foyer on the interior, versus the exterior? It seems to me to be like kind of taking your problem and making that like the public's problem by enclosing the exterior versus enclosing the interior. That's kind of one question. A second question I have is just, for package stuff, like there are plenty of solutions like secure boxes and bins that wouldn't require historic approval. And, have you considered that approach? Um, and, you know, the third question I have is, look, once you enclose it, it is part of enclosed property. And so if you were to sell the house next year, what would prevent the next owner from just taking that enclosed porch and just putting it into the house, which actually happened on another house in the 400 block of U Street. It was enclosed long before it was made a historic district. I forget the number of it, but it's the second in from the northwest corner of the street. There was a historic porch that was enclosed, and during the renovation 2 years ago or so, that porch was actually taken, and all the original details were removed, and it was just made part of the house. And if you do this now, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing that would prevent you or a future owner from just reclaiming that into the house later on. Um, so those are my questions. Maybe reflect on my questions, and then I'll share a few comments that I have.
Sure. Thanks. So for the first question of the storm door, we were motivated by three aspects of our current front door: the leakiness, which the storm door would work for, but then
Mhm.
also when it's open, it's, you know, full outdoor, whatever's going on outside directly into the dining space. So the storm door does help with some of the environmental energy efficiency thinking behind it, but not fully.
But your house would have originally had an interior foyer.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what the original, we don't have the original footprint.
But why not put back an interior foyer if that's your
I'm
problem?
Yeah, I'm surprised that that would be possible. I'm happy to show the interior, but there's a light fixture. I don't know if it's original. It looks old. That's like wood block where a potential foyer would be. And then there's what I thought was the original pocket doors to the front, only a few feet off the front door. So I don't know how that would fit, but I mean, I don't have the original floor plan. And then on the packages, we do have a package box, but delivery, and we have a sign saying, please put our packages in our package box. But I would say 75% of our packages just get dropped and outside of our front door. So
And why
I
would
know,
that change if you have a door that like another door? Wouldn't they
well,
still just drop it out the front door if they don't
yeah,
listen to the signs already?
it could just push some of the problem even closer to the street. But I'm hoping that since they are dropping it at the front door, they would continue dropping it at the front door, which would then be at least one
I mean, I
level
would
of
think they would think
partition
that I would
separated
think
from the
that
street, but
yeah.
it's
Um
not a perfect solution to the theft problem. But
yeah. So I personally feel like the first problem there's a very simple solution to. Your third problem, I don't really see how this adds to it, solves it because you there people are going to leave the packages at probably the front of your porch, which, as you say, is going to be even closer to the street. And it's your second problem. I just don't think is this committee's problem to solve. I think you can solve it on the interior versus the exterior, and I think it's taking something away from the public to block in any way or alter the exterior of this house. And I think um, you could solve the problem kind of by taking something away from yourself, which is some interior square footage. Um, I also, just for those who don't know this block, this is the only block in Detroit Park that has all original McGill houses. And the house that we're talking about is a McGill house that is one of the original houses to the LaDroit Park neighborhood. So it's not just a um, a contributing building to the LaDroit Park Historic District. It's one of the essential 40 or so buildings that remain from the original development. And I think like the bar for altering the exterior on any house on this any McGill house period, but also in particular a McGill house on this block, which is the only block that has the um, the original homes. I think would be quite a high bar from a historic preservation standpoint, and I just don't see how this meets that high bar. And I
Um,
would just encourage using package boxes and signage and a storm door as an alternative solution.
um, Jason, can I go on to Joel's question? Or do you have, we can
I'm done. I'm done.
return to comments after, but our other historic architecture expert, Joel, it's all you.
Geez, now I'm an expert, huh? I know I know the procedures. I looked at the street view on this, and you have 2 meters. Is this a 2-unit building?
yes, we have a basement that has a separate entrance.
Okay. Otherwise, my concerns are very much along the lines of Jason's. A glass enclosure is one, it's a very commercial kind of iconography. And this is a very residential, and like I said, the McGill houses are very much. Um, I I'm not seeing a hard pressing need for this. And also there is, I hadn't thought about, but Jason did raise a point, is once that is approved as a structure, um, there would always have to be a permit to get it enclosed. But I guess that's another step and another issue that it raises. So I'm kind of having trouble, agreeing with this. I know from your point it seems like a simple thing, but from an overall thing and the precedents that it would set of allowing porches to be enclosed, I'm not convinced just yet.
Um, well, sorry, Stephanie, if I'm interrupting, did you have something that you wanted to follow up with Joel about?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I guess I know, Devin, you have your hand up, and I'm gonna just interject really quickly. I guess one thing I'm wondering, as somebody who has less experience with the board itself, for those of us on the committee who have more experience with the board, um, I am under the impression, based on what I know about this application, Stephanie, and also the board, is that this is likely not allowed under the historic guidelines, and so that then at the board review level, it would still be we would be encountering the same we would be encountering the same question. So I guess I'm wondering, yeah, Joel, did you want to answer that?
Well, I actually would like to ask the owners one other question is,
Mm.
you had said you had spoken with Brendan and he said it had to go to the board. Did he give any indication of what his feelings were about supporting it or HBO supporting it or not supporting it?
No, just gave us the information on the appeal process and said he's open to discuss it and see where we land on the final plans and based
Got it.
on these consultations as well. But based on his initial position, I don't think staff will, I mean, yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be curious too, because I'm not sure where staff would come in this either, because they're not keen on allowing these kind of things generally. And Kristen, back to you were procedural, you're asking how the board would treat this?
Well, yeah, I guess do we, because I think there's a question here about like averting, for me at least, there's a question here with the sort of time of the applicant about averting a process where it's not approved at the board if we can find a solution to the problems in a
Well,
different way.
this will have to go to the board.
Right, but do you have any guess, I guess? Well, maybe you don't want to guess.
Um,
I started asking that question. I was like, well, if I were a
yeah,
planner, I wouldn't want to do
Kristen,
that.
it has to do with Joel's point
Hmm.
about what Brandon says. If Brandon is going to write a positive
Right,
referral
yeah,
to the board, which he's going to have to do one way or the other, I'm surprised he hasn't been transparent to let them know for sure whether he's going or not. If
yeah.
right.
if he
Well,
writes a negative that he's not supporting it, then
yeah,
the board is going to have a bigger, heavier pull to override that.
Yeah,
And the applicant would have to really argue strenuously as to why it should be overridden. My gut feeling, based on my experience, is that the board is more than likely not going to approve this if there's any inkling from the staff member that they have a problem.
got
If
it.
I could just add to that, though, I think
Yeah,
that's
Jason, go
all
ahead.
true. I think that's all true. I also think it's like a little bit moot, which is, there's multiple players who weigh in on the compatibility. One player is the staff, and I agree fully with Patrick. If if the staff is opposed, or does not think it is compatible, which it sounds like Brendan may have given some indication of, because usually if it's compatible, he is somewhat transparent about that. Um, then it is a very high bar. But the other source of input is the community, and
Right, exactly. Yeah.
and I think we should weigh in for ourselves, independent of what we think Brendan will do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to add the only mitigating factor that I would say this is that the porch isn't the long way isn't facing the street like like a corner porch would or something. You are looking kind of head on into the door rather than to the side, and that would be the only mitigating factor. as far as I would be concerned.
Can you explain more what you mean, Joel?
If it was if the full length of the porch was facing the street and parallel the street, I would certainly say,
Oh, yeah.
because it would be very, very visible and very
Yeah.
obvious what it is. Like I said, being back, it does sit back from the street. It's along the side of the house, in a sense.
Yeah.
That would be the only mitigating reason I could see to approve it. But I'm still not sold on its actual need yet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna interject here because
Yes,
this is
please, Devin. Thank you.
the exact segue that I was going to bring in, which is that the door is transverse to the street. So, like Joel just said, the door does not face the street. And looking at it on the street view, the homeowner can correct me if things have changed. But what I'm actually seeing is the far more glaring historical gap here is that their electricity meter sits front and center in the middle of this view. I personally think that this enclosure is small potatoes, to put it kindly. I don't. I agree with the question of whether this ultimately solves the problem. I do think that delivery drivers will go for the path of least resistance, and if they could just throw your package into a lake, they'd do that more than anything else. But if this is like, I ultimately think that like if this is the path that the homeowner wants to take and try it and see what happens, I do not think that there is a visually acute problem with what is being proposed here. Any relevancy to uh, the actual like historic preservation and review process, uh, that's a separate adventure. But at least on my opinion on this, I'm okay with it.
And can we provide a little bit more
Yeah, please. Go
context?
ahead.
Sure. And thank you all for your input so far. It's very helpful also for us to think this through. So we had worked with a contractor who replaced our attic windows, went through the HPO process, had them approved. And so we talked to him about the project and he said, "Great, I'll work with an architect. I'll drop the plans." We submitted everything, the city approved. And so we didn't fully understand, the context of this full process
Mm,
and the board when we had the plans drawn up. So when we talked to Brendan, we were thinking about it like, it's the back part of the porch. It'll all be glass. We'll preserve all of the original architectural details. Everything will still be visible. And since we already have the plans, he said, yeah, I mean, it's not obviously approvable within the rules. So if you want, then you go to the board and you can get their views. So that's sort of where we're coming from with this.
sure.
Had been thinking about it as like a more straightforward minor change, similar to the windows that we did in the attic. And so, it is very helpful also to hear your perspective on this and, understand more the context of the rules. But that's how we have architectural plans drawn up without having, Brendan's full clearance up front.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. Aaron.
Yeah, I had more of a question, a process question than I do about this specific thing. I guess like what is and just for background, this is like my second meeting. I don't really know a lot about this process. So Christian, I think this is more a question to you. Like what is our role in oversight of this kind of thing? Like I feel like are we expected to be the stewards and understand the standards associated with the historical preservation review board, or like it seems like they're the experts on that? So like what is like how do we weigh in? What is the best way for us to weigh in? That might be kind of a loaded question to ask right now, but
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I might lean on some of the longer term members of the committee to add their perspective. I think we are not expected, the committee is not expected to be experts, but we are expected to,
Some of us have
um,
background.
what did you say, Joel?
Some of us have a little background.
Yeah, some of us have some background in planning or architecture. Um, I wouldn't say that we're expected to be experts about the zoning, the historic preservation ordinance. Um, but I do think that we are. expected to provide community insight on proposed changes, and sometimes those can include things like this, that impact, like for context, historic ordinances, districts are often created to protect a um, particularly important historic resource. And so I think when as somebody who does not know a lot about architecture, but it does know a lot about planning, what I usually think about when I'm thinking about these cases is what was the purpose of this historic district in the first place, and what was it trying to protect? Does this project meet that spirit of the historic district? And if it doesn't, I think this is kind of where Joel was talking about the sort of like it raises the bar for things like the Historic Preservation Review Board. If it doesn't meet the spirit, is there a good reason for it? And in my mind, the reason has to be something along the lines of like hardship, essentially. Um, I will ask Joel or Jason or Patrick to correct me on that or add any flavor to that assessment. But that's sort of how I've been thinking about these types of things.
The only thing I would just
The context has to be put in, and I think what Aaron is asking is, what is the role of this committee? The
Right.
role of this committee is to abide by the guidelines of what is enforced by the governmental agencies. And the ANC is the voice of the community, and it has the quote unquote great weight of the community making decisions on these type of projects that go before the board. So the zoning commission, the BZA board, and the historic review board, which is this case,
Right.
are required to put out to the ANC for their input on it. Now, the ANC can not reply at all if they don't want to. Historically speaking, from my experience in being on this committee and sharing it and participating in meetings, is that the board wants to hear from the ANC. They really take that into consideration.
Well,
So it's important for the community's voice to be heard on this. We're not, as
Right.
Christian said, experts, but we want to weigh in and say, do we agree with this? Do we think there are issues? And here's the opportunity for us to voice those issues and let the board know where the ANC stands as far as positives and negatives to recommending or denying this project.
Okay.
the only thing I would
Oh,
just
sorry,
add to
go
that
ahead.
is that like one, there are elements of like whether things are compatible or not with the neighborhood that are somewhat like have some subjectivity. So it's an alternative perspective on that. And then two, there's a lot of details that people on the board may not know that people in the neighborhood do.
Right.
So, for example, like in this property, just the importance of the streetscape and the fact that, like, as you walk down the street, what you see is more or less the same view that you would have seen in 1875 is kind of special. And unless you have the experience of walking down that street and seeing feeling kind of almost transported to 1875 by the architecture, you wouldn't have an appreciation for that. And something small or something that feels small, like an enclosure part of the architecture, it feels small in the context of the house, but actually kind of feels quite big in the context of like when you're walking down this whole block, and it would be like the only glass and steel structure that you would see on the entirety of the block.
Yeah.
I see. Thanks. That's
Does that help,
helpful.
Aaron?
Yeah, that does. And I guess like now moving
Aaron,
on to the comment piece. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to get back to your original point. The other thing that this community is kind of providing a sensibility of the neighborhood.
Right.
There's usually how people in general feel, and that's the input that you're looking for. And when what Patrick was going to about the ANC, the BZA and the HPRB are by regulations required to give great weight to the ANC's recommendation. So that's why this process exists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks. That helps provide context on like how we could provide comment. I guess like so from that vantage point then, I walk extensively on this street. I also, live up the street from this block. And that being said, package theft is very real. And I think anything that, our neighbors can do to improve and decrease the rate of package theft, I think is totally an important prerogative for them to have. I think I've walked by this house a couple of times, and I think I agree with Devin. Right, there's pretty good tree cover. I don't think this would be super unobtrusive. I feel like walking along this street, I'd still feel transported to the 1870s. And so I guess from that regard, yeah, I think I agree with Devin. I don't really see a problem with this.
Well, thank you, Aaron. Any other committee members have questions or comment for the applicant?
If not, I'll add one more comment just on
Yeah, please go ahead.
I have
just
one more comment too, once she's done.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Thanks,
Patrick.
Patrick. So we're presenting next week at the LPCA, so we'll also get their views. And we spoke with our neighbor who shares the building, our neighbor on the other side, the two neighbors directly across. So basically everyone who can see this portion of our house, and everybody is on board and supportive. And we also reached out to the two more diagonal people across the street who can't actually see our porch and haven't heard back. So, we also were checking with our neighbors first to make sure that at least the most directly people with line of sight on the area were on board, which I know is not the full picture, but just to add that comment.
Yeah. That is actually really helpful to know because we do, I was remiss in the sense that I did not ask you about that already. We do usually ask people if they've done any outreach to their abutting neighbors. Um, Aaron, do you still have a question or a comment?
No, that was it. Thanks,
Great.
Richmond.
Yeah, lower your hand. Jason, and then I think if anyone else has, please raise your hand, and then I'll just quickly ask community members if they have a question, and then I'll add my 2 cents. Oh yes, and Patrick, you had okay. So Patrick, it's all you.
No, sorry, I was gonna.
Oh,
I do have
Jason,
something.
it's
Yeah,
you.
yeah. No, I just wanted. I mean, I really appreciated Aaron's comments there, but I just sort of was reflecting a little bit on like the notion of things we can do for package theft, and there was some cases a few years ago for this committee about people putting up like large like 6 and 8 foot fences around their properties. And it's sort of like, yeah, we could all just like fence in our properties and look like, Mexico City or South Africa, where you can't even see the houses from the street. And, the streetscape is all blocked off. And, that's an extreme, but I really truly hope that package theft is like an artifact of this specific moment in this specific time. And I also reflect that, at least with my house, I view myself not as an owner, but as a steward of the house. And I just would sort of feel kind of sad about making kind of permanent decisions for the next generation based on, problems that are, problems of this exact moment, and sort of the proverbial cutting off your nose to spite your face, which it feels like kind of closing off our properties to prevent package theft. Just doesn't really help the neighborhood overall.
Patrick, you want to go next? Thanks, Jason.
So two quick comment, one comment, one quick question. In response to your comment about talking to your neighbors and getting their support, I would highly recommend, I've always done in the past when I was chair, that you get them to write a letter and send it in, not just talk to them and then you revert it. It gives you better context for the board to receive a letter from them saying you talked with them and went through the process and showed them pictures and blah, 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 blah. And anyone can put comments into the record. That's one point. Second point is, have you discussed or contemplated, how do I ask this question? The you're proposing a metal thing with glass windows, and have you talked to your contractor about what type of metal you could use as far as different colors that would mute it so that it's not seen from the street versus an aluminum style? I mean, I don't know what you're proposing as a final thing, but that could be an option that you might consider depending on how much metal is going to be seen versus the glass. Because it looks like on your drawings that you've got little squares, which means you're going to have more metal.
Thanks. We haven't discussed that yet, but we're very open to feedback on the design. So if it helps to take away some of the panes of glass and make it larger pieces, to make it, less opaque, then we're happy to make that type of change. So it would be good to get the committee's overall view on that as well. We were thinking this design because there's panes on the windows. So sort of aligning with the style of the house. But yeah, we're open to feedback on that. And thank you for the advice about the letters.
Yes. It's helpful to, I always say if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. Um,
Does a
uh,
text count?
I am going to see if anybody from the community in the audience has a question for our applicant. Okay. I don't usually. Sometimes I do not give my 2 cents, but I do think that it's worth it in this moment, just as the chair. Um, but I I have a little bit of a sort of combined feeling about this. One is that this is pretty low-hanging fruit, and so I don't feel super strongly about whether or not this exists. But I also don't live in the neighborhood, and so I'm more interested um, in thinking about, and I have not walked on the street. To ever, to the best of my knowledge. So maybe I need to pay it a visit to see all of the historic buildings. But I do think that, like, generally speaking, I'm a little bit reticent to be excited about things that seem not approvable, because I want to make sure that we're giving guidance to both the ANC commissioners who would be supporting this, and then ultimately to the board that reflects some due diligence on our part in terms of reading the ordinance or understanding the ordinance at the very least. And so I'm a little bit agnostic about like on its face, I'm sort of agnostic about this. And I think if I were a neighbor, I don't know if I would necessarily care, but I do feel like this is probably not approvable under the basic understanding of the ordinance, and I'm a little bit reticent to support something that would contravene the ordinance without a specific sort of more necessary point of view or more necessary intervention. But at the same time, I do also understand what you said, Devin, that like this is not like, and Joel, you mentioned this too, that it's not a front facing, like the whole length of the porch isn't front facing. Um, so I think you know. Uh, I also think that like historic districts are important assets to the city, and I think the thing that ultimately is the one that I'm spending the most of time thinking about is what Jason said about the porch being enclosed, becoming part of the building, and then ending up not being a porch at all ever in the future. So that those are just the things that I'm thinking of. And I know Patrick, you have your hand up.
My question to the applicant is, obviously you have not received positive from Brandon that he's going, you're still in contact with him, I assume. And So that means that you're not even slated as a case to be held. So my gut would be to say to you at this point to go back to him and get a little bit more input from him as to whether or not he's in supportive of it. And then once that gets done, then you'll be put on the agenda, and then you can come back to the committee here and get a positive or a negative support factor. I think it's a little too early at this point with the concerns that I'm hearing from different people to weigh in positively or negatively on this at this point without knowing for sure whether or not you're even going to get staff approval.
So we are slated to go in front of the board. I just don't know what Brendan will be submitting on behalf of staff. And so
Yeah.
the last email from him was, reach out and we can discuss further and let me know if you have questions. So after this, we'll get back in touch with Brendan and hopefully we can convince him to be on board or at least neutral, because
So
we understand the significance of his.
has he told you what, I mean, I'm assuming you have a case number then. Did he give
Yes.
you a temporary time for, is it next month or the month after?
It's at the end of May.
Yeah.
But
Yes, you're right, Stephanie. Originally this was slated to be, I mean, we did the thing that we always do with these types of applications. This was supposed to be on the April meeting, which is on Thursday, I think. And then we asked for a review period. Brendan pushed it to the May meeting, pending our conversation. I do actually think that, well, I'll see, Joel, if did you have anything that you wanted to add? And
Yeah.
then Jason, I'll go to you.
Um, at this point, I don't think I could support it, but I would kind of recommend what Patrick was getting at was to table this and let the owners come back with any revisions they might have and get a little more input from historic.
Sure. Jason?
And yeah, sorry, I just feel like I'm a little unclear on the feedback from Brendan. Has he shared his view with you on whether the proposal as is compatible or not? And if so, what is that view? Or has he simply just said the board will have to weigh in? Like, has he said, I think this is not compatible and therefore the board will have to weigh in? Or
But
has he said, I'm not telling you my opinion, the board will have to weigh in?
what he told us process-wise was if it's clearly compatible, he can approve it. And he said that was not the case. So it needs to go to the board, which is either not clearly compatible or clearly not compatible. And so that's where he comes out on that is the piece
So
that.
he only gave you process. He didn't tell you any like
Well, he
content.
told us staff was not approving it as clearly
Are you
compatible.
stoned?
Sorry, what'd you say?
Frank, did you? If you had something to say, Frank, raise your hand and let me know. I'm assuming that was an accident. Keep going, Jason. Sorry.
No, that's it. Okay.
Okay, so just to be clear, Stephanie, it sounds like what Brendan said is basically because the nature of this is something that staff can't approve as a staff review.
Yeah.
The approval of it, so we would deny it for the staff approval and send it to the board for their assessment.
That's where we are
Okay,
process-wise, yes.
got it.
And if
I can
helpful,
just having worked with Brendan, if he's not giving you an answer now, he's hedging and going to their staff meetings where they're going to discuss it. And so my feeling is he's not really on board yet. So you may.
He just.
That's- And that's your assessment on your
That's
based on your knowledge of Brendan,
That's working with Brendan for 20 years. Yeah.
the Brendan Whisperer.
Yeah, Brendan does his own thing, but yeah, he can be. Yeah.
Okay, that's
a
helpful, Joel.
few committee members mentioned the view from the street, which I didn't have in the photos, but I pulled up Google Street View and I'm happy to share
Great.
that just for some small amount of additional context. This is our house on the left with the lighter brick. And I'll move over a little.
Right, and I see there's the electrical box that Devin was mentioning.
Yeah. So I think Devin might have mentioned the electrical box on 400 U Street. We also have an electrical box, 402, the house to the right, but it's on the side of the house.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Jason, did you have an additional question, or is that a leftover hand?
No, it's a
Leftover.
leftover hand. Maybe the last thing I would just say is if we decide to table it, we should just make sure to um, have the HPRB meeting postponed. And I just want to make sure that Stephanie is comfortable with that.
Yeah. Jarrett, I see you're unmuted. I can't remember if you had a hand up and I missed it.
I didn't have a hand up, but since I'm here now, quick question. I don't know if this is a process, but have we ever? I'm always a big fan of like what's the sort of standard here. So have we seen a case like this before? Does this feel new? Um,
I mean, speaking from my limited experience, I'm sure Joel or Jason could weigh in on this, but we have seen it's not the same, of course, but we have seen a few cases where people want to add a a roof deck with a railing that is glass um, in a historic district. Usually, I think the last one that we saw about this was in a used historic district. And generally speaking, the standard there is that the railing's not visible from the street. Um, and so that way they have to position the railing in such a way that if I'm standing across the street from the building, I can't see it when I'm looking up at the roof. Um, I'm assuming, Joel, if you're going to share some more information about like whether or not we've had another case more similar like this.
What I was going to say is it's because this is on the front and
Right.
there's a high thing. I know on the back, there's a greater leniency. And like you said, with anything that's visible from the street, there's a standard of if it's not visible standing at the opposite side of the street is the general rule of thumb that they go with.
Yep.
And
So, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to make a comment about it being an enclosed porch, but I'll let that go. But yeah, well, actually, I'm not going to let it go. I've never seen one approved. Let's put it there. So, but that was always a full enclosure, not a glass. So I don't know.
Not quite this. Yeah, it's a little bit, I guess,
Um,
sort of slightly different.
yeah, like I said, I'm not in favor of it.
Yeah.
If Brendan would come in favor of it, I would defer to them. But at the point right now, I don't think I would support it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just to answer your question, Jarrett, there are cases that involve like adding a more modern looking glass structure of some kind, whether it's usually the ones that we see, I think, are railings. And the standard, like Joel said, is whether or not it like on the rear of the building, it's a little the standards are more lenient because it's not visible from the front of the street, and a lot of the historic district regulations focus on what's visible from the front of the street and also the facade and materials and stuff like that. So, um, generally speaking, this is what we see that's similar to this are the glass railings, and they just can't be visible from the street.
okay,
So
and
that's kind of the similarity.
and so does that mean that we've never approved something that was visible from the street?
We have definitely approved things that are visible from the street, so long as they um, reflect the historic character of the building and use materials like window changes, for instance,
Okay.
use materials that are allowable within the ordinance. And the design is reflective of what the requirements are of the ordinance. I don't know if we've approved a roof
Sometimes,
deck that has
well,
any railing that's visible from the street.
yeah, I
Oh,
mean, sometimes we've approved things that are like modern additions,
Right.
but in those cases, it's you have to like clearly differentiate what's new from what's old. So it will be like a addition that's next to the original building, and usually there's some kind of transition or hyphen or something that indicates the the a clear separation between what's old and what's new. And so like in my mind, part of the issue with this is it's not just that it's something new being added into a historic district. It's like right on top of the historic piece.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Jarrett?
yep. Nope. Very helpful. Very helpful.
Okay. So, I think Stephanie, this next part is really a question for you. Um, there's two pathways that we can take with this, and I think it's really up to which one you would like to pursue. I'm happy to ask the committee to vote. Well, somebody would need to make a motion, but I'm happy to ask for a motion to vote on approval of this of your application. And if that happens, whatever the outcome of that would be documented in a letter of recommendation, which we would then send to the ANC at the next ANC committee meeting, at the next commission meeting, excuse me, which is the first week in May. On Thursday, I don't remember what the date of that is, but I would, of course, let you know after this, or somebody who has a better brain than me will tell us now in this meeting. So basically, what we would do is we would write the letter that says whether or not we approve the or we recommend approval of your application. We would send that to the ANC. They would also then vote on it. They can say no to things that we say yes to. They can say yes to things that we say no to. They're not necessarily binding. I wouldn't say that I see that disagreement very often, for all kinds of reasons that I'm sure you can probably guess. But then that letter would be sent to to the HPA, to the HPO people, to Brendan, and it would be added to your file, and that would become part of the review that HPRB looks at. Alternatively, and I think this is something that um, um, I'm having a brain fart, that Patrick suggested. Um, I know you have a conversation next week or later this week with LPCA. That's
Yep,
correct?
it's next week.
It's next week. Something that I might recommend is that you reach out to you. You sort of have our feedback. I'm happy to send you something summarizing what the core, just so that you don't have to remember it. I'm happy to send you something summarizing sort of the main comments from committee members today. And then what you could do is connect back with Brendan and say this is the feedback that we received from the ANC committee. And then, maybe you would be able to do the same with LPCA. I can't speak to their process. And then at that point, Brendan, it might be worth asking him for a more affirmative answer if he's able to give that before you pursue going to the board, so that way you have a clear idea of like things that you might be able to change to make this something that the board would be able to approve.
Mhm.
I think this, whichever direction you go is sort of up to you. Um, and I don't really want to give you a recommendation about which way I think is the best way to pursue this. But those I see are the two paths in front of me, unless another committee member has a different recommendation.
Thanks. So, from what I've heard,
Yeah.
there aren't really changes we could make to the proposal that would address a few committee members' concerns in particular. If we did decide to do something internal or a storm door or a package box, I understand from Brendan, those are all things we can just do. We don't need to go to the ANC. We don't need to go to the HPO. Um, if
You
I
would
had
still have
heard
to talk
feed,
to the dreaded Department of Buildings, but
oh, okay. They already actually approved this.
yeah.
And
Um,
HPO for the storm door, but they can approve it
oh,
themselves.
okay. I understood differently from Brendan, but I might just be remembering wrong. But okay, thank you. Um, yeah, so if we had heard, reduce the footprint or change the
hmm
materials, we'd be happy to do that and re-come to you. But I didn't actually hear feedback that we could implement and then come back to you for, other than abandon the proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not the expert on this, so I can't give you recommendations about specific uh materials to change. I actually think that might be something that would be really worth talking to Brendan about. He is the person who I think might be able to make specific recommendations to you about materials that you can change, doing the internal thing. I don't know if he's brought that up or if you've mentioned that to him at all. I'm guessing not, based on what you were saying earlier, that that's sort of like maybe that's a new concept. But he is the person who would be able to make those recommendations because he knows the ordinance much better than any of us, and also he's the implementer of it. Um, I guess my only feeling about this is that I would hate to have you go all the way to the HPRB and then have this proposal ultimately denied Whereas if you took a little bit of a break now and then we sort of reconvened, so I guess this is me giving you some of my opinion about what you should do. But take that with a grain of salt. This is really up to you. Um, I think it might be worth working with Brendan to see if there is an alternative, whether it's putting something inside or, for instance, having a slightly different design that is more of this, that doesn't rely so much on like a glass metal framework added to the outside of the house. I can't give you any advice really about what that might be. Patrick, please.
Christian, I'm going to make a
Recommendation.
suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
The right word. Just so that we can move forward here.
Yes.
I would suggest that you take an informal poll of the committee members to see whether or not they would support this or not, which would
Okay.
then give us a better idea as to whether or not tonight you want to put forward a motion to either support this project or not support it. Because if there's not enough support tonight, then I highly think that it's not even worth debating. She should go back to Brendan and talk and see what, if anything, he's going to recommend, and then come back at a later date if she really wants to get our support.
Got it. I'm okay with this approach. And so I guess what I will ask, excuse me, what I would ask is if there are committee members who, if there's a committee member who would prefer not to take this approach.
I would like to take a moment to just discuss it as a group,
Sure.
and because that sets a precedent for us as a committee.
Yep.
On the one hand, I like the idea that it gives applicants a chance to kind of understand where things are and makes things more efficient, I guess, because we short circuit things. On the other hand, it kind of feels a little bit like it removes our ability to ever express disagreement with an applicant, because they just keep coming back to us until they get enough yeses. And sometimes we as a committee need to be able to share when we don't support projects. So I'm kind of torn on whether this is like a good precedent for us to set or not, because I see both sides of it, and I'd love others' perspectives.
Thank you, Jason. Anyone else have a?
I actually resonate quite a lot with Jason's second point there about reserving the right to say no. I think tonight specifically, the committee's, not everyone's spoken, but I think the sentiment of the committee's been relatively clear about what the course of action should be. I think reading between the lines here is probably not too hard to guess. If we were to go with an informal voting process, just like a vibe check, I think that there needs to be very explicit rules that we'd have to agree on as a committee around, like, you only get a couple of them before we render a final decision, and then that becomes the decision.
Karen, did you have a?
Yes, actually, and I think, and Devin and Jason actually said exactly what my thoughts are too. Because when you start doing certain things like doing a vibe check, trying to sort of paint us in a position that we may change our mind based on information presented to us, and it sort of sets a precedence where we don't have the flexibility that we would need to have as a committee. And so I feel the same respect that Jason and Devin that they just sent out to you. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Jarrett.
If we were to reject the applicant, is there anything that would prevent them from reapplying?
Nope.
No.
And also,
Not at all.
Yeah,
that happens all the time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we say we're not supportive of this application, the applicant can still go to HPRB. I mean, there's no and say,
or the ANC.
Or the ANC, right? Yeah.
We are an advisory committee to an advisory committee.
Yes, exactly. So this is, we're this is sort of like, we provide a recommendation to the ANC. The ANC can choose to follow that recommendation or not. And then, even if the ANC agrees with us, whatever that is, and we submit that to HPRB, they can choose to um, agree with our recommendation or not as well. And the applicant can pursue all of the application at all of those steps. There's nothing, of course, we're just advisory. We do not have the ability to um, control whether or not applications go places. So the applicant can continue, regardless of the outcome of today, can continue to pursue this application to the HPRB with HPA staff or HPO staff, excuse me. Um, so,
I
Patrick,
would
did you?
just like to make a final comment that I want people to understand I'm not trying to set a precedent. I chaired this committee for 12 years, so I understand the angst that I'm hearing from members. I also want to make clear that in the past, when these kind of issues have come up, the chair itself has made a clear recommendation to say, we're not going to vote on this tonight. We're going to do X, Y, and Z, and has taken his or her power under control and made that decision.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sidestep anybody's power. I'm not trying to muck up the water. I was trying to at least give a clear option. If people don't want to do it, I'm not against it, and I'm not
Yeah.
insulting that people are not against it. I just trying to move the process forward a little bit here.
Yes. Thank you, Patrick. I think to that end, I am interested in, I guess I'm interested in providing Stephanie and Aditya some guidance, whether that, and I think that that is most instrumentally done through a vote on the application. And I will just ask Stephanie if you are interested in taking the pause like I was suggesting, that's also fine, and we can before we vote on this, we can do that. But if you would like to still keep moving forward with this application, then we can take the vote.
Thanks. Yeah, let's do the vote. That'll at least gives us a sense of
Great.
the how much work we'd need to put into
Yeah.
reform it, or if it's worth reforming, and we'll see where we can get with Brendan as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I also really appreciate your patience. This is and it has been a very interesting conversation so far. So, in order for us to proceed to a vote, I do need a second, or I
We
need
need a
a
motion,
motion.
right?
Yes, I need a motion.
Wait, so
Yeah.
Joel, did you have a question about this before we proceed?
well, I'll let you're doing a straw vote, but now it sounds like you're going to take a motion. So I'll just listen to what the motion is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Great.
And I'm just going to keep it very simple in the spirit of there's been a lot of feedback and discussion here. And with the simplicity, the idea being the applicant can take this motion and adapt as she chooses. So my motion is that the ZPD Committee of ANC 1B recommends that the full committee of the full ANC not support the applicant at 402 U Street, given the proposed addition would be incompatible with the historic district.
Second.
Full application. Okay, so given that the full application would not be compatible.
Given that the addition is
Oh,
or the proposed addition.
thank you. Proposed addition would not be compatible with the Ladroit Park Historic District. Okay, so the motion on the table.
District guidelines.
District guidelines, thank you. So the motion on the table is, and I heard a second from Joel, but I just want to reread the motion for all of us. The motion on the table is that the ZPD Committee of ANC 1B recommends that the full ANC not support the application number 26-15 located at 402 U Street, given that the proposed addition would not be compatible with the Ladroit Park Historic District guidelines. So, to the vote. All those, so just to clarify, if you are voting yes, you are not supporting the application. If you are voting no, you would support the application, and then of course you can abstain as well. So all of those in favor of this motion to not support the application, raise your hand for your virtual hand. Okay, so I see four. Keep them up. I want to record names. So these are yay, Karen, Joel, Jason, Jarrett. Okay, all those who are not in favor of not supporting the application, please raise your hands.
I think the
Okay.
wording is who is opposed to this motion.
Yes.
Sorry, I was struggling to raise my hand there for a second.
Oh, you're fine. Okay, so I see nays are Devin, Brad, Aaron, Gabe. Not missing anybody. Okay. Is anyone abstaining? I'm gonna lower your hand, Devin. Okay, nobody is abstaining. I don't usually get to do this because we don't usually have ties, so this is sort of exciting for me. I
And
am
I'm
going.
abstaining. I'm sorry about that.
You are abstaining,
Yeah.
Frank. Okay, thank you. Well, that still doesn't change my. I am going to vote in support of this motion, which means that there are 5 yeas, 4 nays, 1 abstention. So, that is the outcome of this vote. Um, I will make sure, Stephanie, to send you the minutes for this because, of course, there's a lot of rich conversation in here that is hopefully helpful for you. And then my recommendation for you is that, so basically what will happen now is that this will go onto the agenda for the ANC meeting, which is, Brad mentioned, will be on May 7th. That starts at 6:30, although 6:30 to 7 o'clock is usually a guest speaker. So the business you can expect to start at 7 o'clock. And then, check in advance for the agenda when that's published to see where in the agenda your item will land. Because the ZPD has voted not. Joel, did you have something to add before I continue? You're muted if you are talking.
Still muted. Sorry. I
No
just
worries.
wanted to let the applicant know that she also has the option of requesting HPRB to defer their meeting so that this negative vote doesn't go to the HPRB immediately if you would like to reapply with a modified proposal.
Sure. That's something that Brendan could
Brandon.
probably, provide guidance
Right.
about. But in any case, if you want to move forward the way that you were planning to, so that the next on the 7th, which is when the next ANC meeting is, this case will be on the agenda, and then the commissioners will be able to ask questions about it. I think because of the outcome of this vote, I might recommend that you plan to be there. You can be there virtually. I think the next one is probably going to be in person, but there's always a virtual option. So I might recommend that you come ready to discuss both if you've had any additional conversations with Brendan and also maybe anything that you learned from LPCA about this application. And then the ANC will vote on our letter of recommendation, and depend on whatever outcome that is, we will forward that to the HPO staff. So that's sort of like the process that you can expect. If you decide between now and May 7th that you would like a little bit more time to respond to these comments, LPCA's comments, Brendan's comments, etc., please let me know and we can take you off of the agenda. And then we can just be in touch with regard to a subsequent review, whether that's at the ANC directly or at ZPD. So,
Okay.
does that make sense?
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all the time.
ANC
Yes.
commissioner?
What were you saying, Patrick?
Has she reached out to her ANC commissioner, which
Yes.
I'm assuming is
Yes.
Matt Fay?
Yes,
Mhm.
and Commissioner Fay is in the audience, so he
As
viewed all
long
of
as
the
she had a
proceedings.
conversation with him, I was going to suggest that if she hadn't.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, Stephanie, I think that is you're off the hook for the rest of today. I appreciate the time that you've spent with us so far. And in the meantime, please let me know if you have any questions.
Great. Thanks again. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. So I don't believe that our friends from Councilmember Nadeau's office joined. I do know that David was on a limited schedule, and so I think we have unfortunately he's no longer available. So I don't expect him to be joining us. So in that sense, I think we don't have any new business to discuss because we have plenty of time to review these two pieces of legislation. They're still working their way through all of the process. And so I think it's very fine for us to postpone that to an additional discussion next month. Um, so that means that there's nothing left on our agenda to discuss. Um, so we can adjourn for today. I do just want to say this was a very great discussion. I was very appreciative of everybody's weighing in, new members and stalwart members. I don't know in my history as being chair if we've had an application where we have voted not to approve it. So that was a very interesting experience. Um, so yeah, I appreciate everybody's thoughtfulness and on this application and care with the applicant. So yeah, I think unless there's any other new business that members of the committee want to raise now, I think we can adjourn for today. For
Yeah,
this.
the reason you haven't had any no is because most applicants have the sense to withdraw the application before we turn them down.
Well, yes, and have gotten more specific guidance from HPO for sure.
It
So
is unusual that Brendan would basically say to her, "This is not something that would be supported." But if you want to go in front of the committee,
yeah,
she should have taken that
Yeah, that my
part.
reading is that Brendan's not going to support this.
Yeah,
yes,
and that's why
And
I specifically asked whether or not he's weighed in and what was his input on that, because
yeah,
if
Are
you're not
we just?
staff
mhm,
support, you've got a heavy rock to push up a hill to get it through the committee.
yeah. Jason,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I the same here. I mean, I just felt a little bit like having worked with Brendan for probably almost a decade now. Um, I have not seen a situation where he has um, behaved like has been described here. I would be very surprised if he was supportive of it, given what was shared.
yes, indeed. Well, we will learn more eventually, I'm sure. Okay, I'm seeing no new business. So I think we can adjourn for today. Thank you all for your time. And I will be in touch with our agenda for next month, closer to our meeting. Have a
Thank you.
good,
Thanks for your
Thank you,
wonderful
everyone.
Thank you.
chairmanship.
happy to
Bye.
chair, and excited I finally got to vote on something. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.